You step out on the porch with your coffee, and there it is again. That rose bush you paid $38 for, drooping like it worked a double shift and got stiffed on the paycheck. You watered it Monday. You moved it into better sun on Wednesday. You stood over it and said a few words I will not repeat on a family channel. And it still hangs there looking like it wants a lawyer. Maybe you have a whole corner like that. I did. My wife called it the plant hospital, and nobody in that hospital was getting better. So you drive down to the garden center, and a young fella in a green apron hands you a bottle with a sunrise on the label. $30. Big promises about blooms in days. I have bought that bottle. My rose bush never read the label. Then this past June, I took that same half-dead bush from droopy and sulking to loaded with buds in about a week, using something that costs around $2 at any grocery store in America, and it has been sitting on the same shelf since before I was born. Today I am going to show you exactly how I use it, the dumb mistake I made with it that nearly finished off a perfectly good tomato plant, and the 2 backup layers for the plants the $2 trick cannot save by itself. Stay with me to the end, because that last part is where most folks lose the fight without ever knowing why. Now, how I landed on this is a little embarrassing. I was digging through the hall closet looking for the foot soak, because a man my age has earned his foot soak, and I pulled out a carton of Epsom salt. And I stood there in the hallway holding it, and I could see my grandpa's shed clear as a photograph. He kept a coffee can of this stuff on the shelf between the knife sharpener and a jar of bent nails he swore he would straighten someday. Every couple of weeks in the summer, he would stir a spoonful into the watering can and walk his roses like a doctor making rounds, hands behind his back, mumbling to them. His roses looked like a seed catalog cover. Mine looked like they were being punished for something. So I started reading up on what is actually in that carton, and it turns out Grandpa was doing chemistry, whether he knew it or not. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. Magnesium and sulfur, 2 things a blooming plant burns through all season, in one cheap scoop. And I will tell you something else I noticed. Nobody at the garden center ever once brought it up in all my years of shopping there. A $2 carton that lasts 2 summers does not pay anybody's commission. The bottle with the sunrise on it does. Method 1, the $2 revival soak. First, let me tell you what this stuff actually does, in plain backyard language, because the carton will not. Magnesium sits at the center of the green in every leaf. It is a working part of the machinery a plant uses to turn sunlight into food. When a plant runs short, the older leaves start going yellow between the veins while the veins themselves stay green. Growth stalls out, and buds either never form or form and then quit halfway, which is the most insulting version. Sulfur is the quiet partner, helping the plant build tissue and even the compounds that give roses their smell. Heavy bloomers chew through both. Roses, tomatoes, peppers, hydrangeas, and potted plants run out fastest of all because every single watering rinses a little more of it out the drain hole. Your pot is a bathtub somebody keeps pulling the plug on. Now let me be straight with you, same as I am about everything on this channel. Epsom salt is not medicine for every sick plant. If bugs are chewing on it, Epsom salt will not evict them. If the plant is sitting in a dark corner, no scoop of anything turns into sunshine. And if the roots are drowning in a wet pot, and we will get to that one, salt of any kind makes it worse. What this trick fixes is one very common, very sneaky shortage that makes plants droop, yellow, and refuse to bloom even when you are doing everything else right. In my yard, that shortage turned out to be behind more sad plants than everything else combined. The trick has 2 steps. And the first one is free. Step 1 is the finger test. Before you treat anything, push your finger 2 knuckles deep into the soil next to the plant. If it comes out dry as a cracker, good. The plant is thirsty on top of hungry, and the soak will do double duty. If it comes out cool and barely damp, also fine. Carry on gently. But if it comes out soggy, The pot feels heavy as a bowling ball, and there is a faint sour smell. Stop right there and do not soak that plant in anything. That one has the opposite problem, and I will show you what to do about it in method 2. 30 seconds of your finger in the dirt is the difference between medicine and malpractice. Step 2 is the soak itself. 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt per gallon of lukewarm water. Lukewarm, because roots drink cold water slower, same as you sipping iced tea in January. Stir until you cannot see a single grain, and I mean fully gone, because dissolved is the only form roots can actually take up. Grains sitting in the soil are just gravel with a reputation. For a potted plant, I do a bottom soak. Set the pot in a tub or a 5-gallon bucket with 3 or 4 inches of the mix in the bottom and walk away for 30 or 40 minutes. Go have your sandwich. The soil wicks it up from below until the surface feels damp, which pulls the water right through the whole root ball instead of racing down the inside of the pot and out the bottom like top watering loves to do. Then, and do not skip this, lift the pot out and let it drain until it fully stops dripping. A plant left standing in water is how you trade a $2 problem for a $20 one. For roses and shrubs in the ground, pour it slowly around the drip line. That is the circle on the ground under the outer tips of the branches, because that is where the feeder roots actually are. A gallon for a small plant, 2 gallons for a big established rose. Pouring it against the trunk is serving dinner in the garage. The plant eats out at the edge of the table. After the soak, plain water only, and watch what happens. On my rose, day 3 or 4, the new growth started coming in a deeper, richer green, the kind of green that plant had not shown me since the day I bought it. By the end of the week, buds. I started counting, got past 30, and gave up counting. My wife walked by it, stopped, backed up 2 steps and said, "Well, look who decided to live." From my wife, that is a standing ovation. If the plant responds, keep it going with a maintenance dose, once a month during the growing season, same mix, and that is the whole program. Some folks also swear by a foliar spray for a fast green up, 1 teaspoon per gallon in a clean spray bottle, misted on the leaves early in the morning before the sun gets serious. It works, and I use it on the tomatoes, but keep it light. Leaves are built for breathing, and eating is a side job for them. One honest boundary before we move on. A few plants do not want this at all. Succulents and cactus, leave them out of it. Same for the plants that actually like poor, lean, gravelly soil. Your lavender, your rosemary. Feeding those is like bringing donuts to a man who is fasting on purpose. He is not going to thank you. I've compiled all these traditional methods into a manual. The link is in the description. Now, the mistake, because I promised you the mistake. After the rose came back, I got cocky. I looked at my tomato plant, which was sulking, and I did shed math. 1 spoon fixed the rose, so 3 spoons will fix the tomato 3 times as fast. Shed math has cost me more money over the years than I will ever admit to my wife. A week later, the tomato leaves were curling, the edges had gone brown and crispy, and a white crust had formed on top of the soil like the pot had spent a weekend at the beach. Too much salt, even the helpful kind, pulls water away from roots instead of toward them, and extra magnesium elbows out the calcium a tomato has to have. I took a plant with 1 problem and handed it 2 more, with a smile on my face while I did it. What saved that tomato was plain water and humility. I flushed the pot slowly with clean water until it ran out the bottom for a solid minute. Let it dry back down to 2 knuckles, then flushed it again a few days later. It recovered, no thanks to me. So measure. 1 tablespoon per gallon, dissolved all the way, once a month at most. And once a month or so, give every pot 1 plain, deep watering that runs freely out the drain hole, just to rinse the books clean. Extra does no extra good here. It just runs up the bill. And if you are finding this useful so far, take 1 second and hit the like button. because the next part is the one that saves the plants everybody else gives up on. Method 2. The rescue for the plant that wilts in wet soil. A lot of good-hearted plant owners go wrong at this exact spot, and I include my own household. My wife has a peace lily she calls Doris. Do not ask me why the plant has a name, and my truck does not. Last winter, Doris went droopy, so my wife watered her. Doris drooped harder, so she got watered again. By the time I was called in as a consultant, that pot weighed like a curling stone, and the soil smelled faintly of pond. A droopy plant standing in wet soil has stopped drinking because the roots are drowning. Roots need air pockets in the soil almost as much as they need water, and when soil stays soaked, the air is gone and rot moves in fast. The leaves flop because the rotting roots cannot send water up anymore, so it looks exactly like thirst, and the watering can finishes what the kindness started. The fix costs about $1.50 and is probably in your medicine cabinet right now. Plain 3% hydrogen peroxide, the ordinary brown bottle. Mix 1 part peroxide with 4 parts water. For a mild case, plant droopy, soil wet, stems still firm. Water the soil once with that mix instead of plain water. You may hear a faint fizz down in the pot. That fizz is the peroxide breaking apart and releasing oxygen straight into the root zone, giving the roots a breath while it knocks back some of the rot organisms it touches. Then comes the real medicine, which is doing nothing. Leave that plant completely alone until the soil dries to 2 knuckles deep, however long that takes. The peroxide buys time. The drying out does the healing. For a bad case, slide the whole plant out of the pot and look at the roots with your own eyes. Healthy roots are pale and firm. Rotten roots are brown, mushy, and smell like the back corner of the refrigerator. Trim off every mushy piece with clean scissors and wipe the blades between cuts so you are not spreading trouble around with the surgery. The old growers I trust dust the fresh cuts with a pinch of plain ground cinnamon from the spice rack. It has a long reputation as a mild fungus fighter on cut ends, and it has never once done me wrong. Then repot in fresh, dry soil, in a pot with a drainage hole. If the pot has no hole, drill one or retire it to holding pens on the shelf, because a pot with no hole is a soup bowl with ambitions. 2 weeks after Doris got the full treatment, she put up a brand new leaf, and my wife acted like I had personally hung the moon. I will take it. A man collects his wins where he can. Method 3. The habits that keep them blooming after the rescue. The soak brings a plant back. Habits keep it back. These cost nothing but minutes, which suits me, because I already spent my $2. Habit 1. Deadheading. When a bloom fades, snip it off just above the next healthy leaf. A spent flower left hanging on tells the plant the season's work is done, and it starts winding down into seed making. Snip it off and the plant reads unfinished business and fires up another round. You know those neighbors whose roses never seem to stop all summer? Those neighbors carry scissors on their evening walk. That is most of the secret right there. Habit 2. Water deep and less often, in the morning. A light little sprinkle every day trains roots to loiter up near the surface, where the afternoon sun cooks them. A deep soak 2 or 3 times a week trains roots to chase the water down where the soil stays cool and steady. Morning matters too. The plant heads into the heat with a full tank, and the leaves dry off quick, which keeps the fungus crowd from moving in. Habit 3. The 2-knuckle test before every watering, every plant, every time, forever. Most of the problems this entire video exists to fix start with watering on a schedule instead of watering on a test. The calendar does not know your plant, your finger does. Habit 4. Check for the crowded pot. If water runs straight through in seconds and the plant wilts a day after a good drink, slide it out and look. Roots circling round and round the inside like a racetrack means the plant has outgrown the house. Move it up one pot size, one only, loosen those circling roots with your fingers, and it will act like a new plant inside a month. Habit 5. Watch the light before you diagnose anything. A plant that flops every afternoon and stands back up by supper is not sick. It is getting scorched, plain and simple. Pots can move. Move them to where the afternoon is kinder. My grandpa never owned a bottle with a sunrise on the label. He owned a pocket knife, a watering can, and that coffee can of Epsom salt, and his yard looked like a postcard from somewhere better. What made that yard was the rounds he walked every evening with his hands behind his back, catching every problem while it was still a small one. The $2 trick works a whole lot better for a man who shows up. Before you go dumping Epsom salt on everything you own, let me answer the questions I can already see half-typed in the comments. Question 1. Will this really make any wilted plant bloom again in days? A wilted plant that is short on magnesium and otherwise sound, yes, and faster than you would believe. My rose did it inside a week, and I have seen tomatoes turn around in 4 days. But no single scoop of anything covers every plant on earth. This trick shines on the hungry bloomers and on tired potted plants that have had their groceries rinsed out the drain hole all year. It will not fix bugs, darkness, or drowning. That is exactly why this video has 3 layers instead of 1. Question 2. Can I just sprinkle it dry on top of the soil and let the rain handle it? Please do not. Dry salt sits there, crusts over, and can burn whatever stem it piles up against. Dissolved is the entire trick. If you can still see grains in the water, keep stirring. Question 3. My plant is wilted, but the soil is already wet. Should I do the soak anyway just to be safe? No, and I say that with love. Wet plus wilted means the roots are gasping, and salt water pulls even more water out of roots that are already in trouble. That plant gets method 2, the peroxide, the drying out, and an honest look at the roots. The right medicine for the wrong disease is still the wrong medicine. Question 4. Is this safe around the dog and the grandkids? Use the way I showed you, yes. Epsom salt in the garden at these doses is about as low drama as it gets. Just use common sense. Do not leave the mixing bucket standing where the dog can treat it like a water bowl, and keep the peroxide bottle up on the shelf with everything else you keep on the shelf. My dog supervises every soak I do and has never filed a complaint. Question 5. How often can I do the Epsom soak? Once a month during the growing season is plenty, and none at all in winter when the plant is resting. Feeding a dormant plant is like setting a steak in front of a man asleep in a hammock. The steak does not help, and now you have flies. And keep up that monthly plain water flush on your pots, so the salts never stack up behind your back. Question 6. Do I need all 3 methods? Depends on your porch. Same answer I always give. 1 droopy rose and decent habits already. The $2 soak might be your whole story. A porch full of pots, a heavy hand with the watering can, and a peace lily with a legal name. You will want every layer. Plants do not fail for just one reason, so I do not defend them with just one trick. This is that same rose bush today. Take a good look, and count the blooms if you have got the time, because I quit at 30. The carton that did it cost me about $2, and there is enough left in it to carry the whole yard through next summer. Nobody makes a dime when you buy it, which I suspect is the reason nobody in a green apron ever once mentioned it to me in 30 years of shopping. Now I want to hear from you. Which plant are you trying to bring back? And what exactly is it doing? Yellow between the veins, full droop, buds that quit halfway? Put it in the comments and be specific, because half the fun of this channel is folks fixing each other's yards while I sit here and take the credit. And if your grandma had her own revival trick, share that too. I collect those like some men collect fishing lures. If this saved you a $30 bottle, the subscribe button is free. Next time, I am testing a kitchen scrap trick my grandmother swore by for tomatoes, and I am going to find out on camera whether she was right or just stubborn. Knowing her, honestly, it could go either way.